Behold, my name is Kate. I am 27 years old and work in marketing. I have always dreamed about my perfect wedding since I was a young girl. But one day, everything changed. The day everything changed for me. When I was a kid, I was the one who took care of things in my family. My little sister, Emma, was the favorite, the main focus of our parents' world. It didn't really bother me because we all had our jobs to do. I was okay with mine, but nothing could have gotten me ready for the betrayal that broke my heart. It began on a bright, sunny afternoon. I remember going into my parents' house, feeling happy to finish the last few details for my wedding soon. When I walked in, I noticed a weird smell, a combination of new paint and sawdust. I walked into the kitchen, feeling confused. The kitchen, which was old and not modern just a few weeks ago, now looked very different. It was shiny, new, and looked like it came from a home makeover show. "Mom, Dad, what is this?" I asked, my voice bouncing off the bright new tiles. My mom looked at me with a big smile. "Oh dear, isn't it wonderful? We thought it was time for Emma to have a kitchen that a chef would love. The old one was really tight, wasn't it?" Emma joined in, her voice full of excitement. "Sure, Kate, look at this. Now there is a lot of space. It's amazing." I felt a tight feeling in my stomach. Something felt off. I didn't want to ask what I was thinking, but before I could hold back, the words came out. "Where did this money come from?" The room became silent. My dad turned his head, feeling a bit uncomfortable, and cleared his throat. My mom's happy voice became serious when she answered, "Since Emma needed it more, we used your wedding money." I stopped moving, feeling really sad inside. "What about my wedding fund? The money you have saved for me since I was born?" My voice shook and tears filled my eyes. My mom nodded, trying to explain it. "Kate, it was clear. Emma's kitchen was really old, and this mattered a lot to her. We decided to help her. You used it without asking me." I spoke up, my voice trembling with anger and surprise. Emma looked sad. "Kate, I had no idea. I believed they had more money. I didn't expect it to come from your wedding money." What she said didn't count. The harm was already done. I looked at my parents, hoping to see some regret, but all I found was a reason for what they did in their eyes. I couldn't keep it in any longer. "I understand your priorities," I said, my voice calm and distant. "You are no longer invited to the wedding." "Kate, please wait," my mom said, moving closer to me. "No," I said, more harshly than I meant to. "If my dreams matter so little to you, then I don't want you around. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." I didn't say anything else. I just turned and walked out of the house. Every step I took felt harder than the one before, like my heart was hurting a bit more with each move. When I reached my car, tears were running down my face. This was meant to be one of the happiest times in my life. I planned my wedding for many months. Now the people I believed would help me the most have destroyed that dream without even thinking. I drove home thinking about what just happened. I remembered all the times I had to be the one in charge. I always tried my best to make my parents proud. I put in a lot of effort, saved up, and stayed out of trouble. At the same time, Emma, the favorite, always appeared to receive everything easily. This time it was just too much. It was more than just the money. It was about being let down. They took something that was meant for me, something I had dreamed about my whole life, and gave it away without thinking about how it would affect me. As I sat alone in my apartment that evening, I realized something important. This wasn't just about the kitchen or the wedding fund. It was about how I had always been treated as second best. For years I had accepted it, thinking that was just the way things were. But now I saw things clearly. This was my time to stand up for myself, to put my own happiness first for once. It wouldn't be easy, but I knew I had to move forward without their support. In the end, the wedding would still happen and it would still be beautiful. The people who truly cared about me would be there to celebrate, and that was all that mattered. This betrayal hurt more than I could put into words, but it also gave me strength. It taught me to value myself and my dreams, even when others didn't. And for that, I would forever be grateful. I reached my car, and tears rolled down my face like an unstoppable river. But with those tears came something else, a new determination. It was as solid and unshakable as the fancy granite countertops that had replaced my lifelong dream of a perfect wedding. My wedding would still happen, but it would be on my terms, smaller, simpler, and entirely mine. As for my family, they had made their choice, and now I was making mine. From this moment on, I would focus on building a life where I came first. The one day that was supposed to be all about me would truly reflect what I wanted. After canceling my parents' invitations, I thought the worst of the drama might be over. I was wrong. Adjusting my wedding plans felt bittersweet, but soon rumors began to spread. I could only guess that my parents were proudly showing off Emma's shiny new kitchen to anyone who would listen. One afternoon, as I sipped coffee with my best friend Sabrina, she leaned forward, her expression a mix of disbelief and frustration. "Kate, you're not going to believe this," she said. "Your parents actually said Emma's kitchen was a better investment than a wedding." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. So apparently my biggest milestone in life is less important than a fancy kitchen remodel. I said, sarcasm dripping from my words. Sabrina stared at me, her eyes wide with shock. "I mean, really, a kitchen is more important than your wedding." "That's just ridiculous." Her reaction mirrored my own feelings. I thought I had already felt the worst of their betrayal, but somehow, hearing those words made it hurt even more. I clenched my hands around my coffee mug, my frustration bubbling to the surface. "They just don't get it," I said, my voice tight with anger. "But if they think they can brush this off without consequences, they're wrong. Cutting them out of my wedding isn't enough anymore." Sabrina nodded, her expression serious. "Good. They need to realize what they've done. This isn't just about a kitchen, it's about how they've treated you." I knew she was right. They needed to understand the impact of their actions. And for that, I needed support from someone who truly understood what I was going through. That's when I decided to reach out to my Uncle Tony. Tony had distanced himself from the family years ago, frustrated with their shallow values and favoritism. Reconnecting with him felt like finding a lifeline. "You know, Kate," he said one evening as we sat in his warm, book-filled study, "I always knew your parents favored Emma. But this is on a whole other level." His voice was rough with disapproval, and I could see the frustration in his eyes as he spoke. "Yeah," I replied, my own anger boiling over. "And now they're parading it around town like it's something to be proud of." Tony shook his head, his jaw tight. "They've made their priorities clear, Kate. Now it's your turn to do the same." His words struck a chord in me. I wasn't just planning a wedding anymore. I was taking control of my life. This wasn't just about one day. It was about standing up for myself and refusing to let their actions define me. And for the first time, I felt strong enough to do it. I couldn't let this go. The hurt and anger were too strong. As I sat with Uncle Tony, I voiced my frustration, unsure of how to move forward. Tony leaned in, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "What if we don't let it go?" he said. "What if we let everyone see them for who they really are?" His idea was simple yet brilliant, a family reunion. It had been years since we had one, and Tony offered to host it at his place. The goal: to expose my parents' actions in front of the whole family. Planning the reunion gave me a sense of purpose. It was something to focus on besides my scaled-down wedding. Tony and I worked together, going through guest lists and contacting relatives we hadn't seen in years. The invitations hinted at a big surprise, sparking curiosity. When the day of the reunion arrived, I was a bundle of nerves. Tony's large backyard was buzzing with chatter as relatives greeted each other and caught up. I watched as my parents arrived, looking both confused and cautiously pleased by the attention. Once everyone had settled in, Tony clinked his glass, calling for silence. The murmur of conversations faded, and all eyes turned to him. "Family," he began, his voice commanding and steady. "We're here today to celebrate truth and transparency among us." I noticed my parents exchanging uneasy glances. They could sense that something was off. Tony continued, his tone growing more serious. And what better way to celebrate truth than by clearing up some misconceptions? He turned to me and gave a small nod. Taking a deep breath, I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest. "Many of you have probably heard about, or even seen, my sister Emma's beautiful new kitchen," I began, trying to steady my voice. "What you might not know is how it was paid for." Whispers rippled through the crowd as I pulled out copies of bank statements and contractor bills. "These documents show exactly where the money came from," I said, holding them up for everyone to see. "The money set aside for my wedding, money saved for me since I was a child, was used without my permission to fund that kitchen remodel." A shocked silence fell over the crowd, broken only by murmurs of disbelief. My parents' faces turned a deep shade of red. Emma stared at her feet, clearly mortified. I continued, my voice shaking with emotion. "My dream, my wedding, was deemed less important than a set of fancy appliances and granite countertops." Tony stepped forward then, his voice firm and commanding. "We stand for fairness and support in this family," he said. "Today we've seen an example of the opposite. Let's reflect on what this means for us as a family moving forward." The crowd buzzed with shock and indignation. Why would they do such a thing? An aunt called out, disbelief heavy in her tone. I answered, my words bitter but honest. In their eyes it was about necessity, what they thought was more important. But in doing so, they overlooked fairness and respect for me. Emma, her face bright red with embarrassment, suddenly stood up. "Kate, I didn't know," she said, her voice trembling. "I had no idea the money came from your wedding fund. If I had known, I would never have let this happen." Her apology felt sincere, but it didn't erase the damage. I appreciated her words, but the betrayal wasn't just about her. It was about my parents and their decision to disregard my dreams without a second thought. As the reunion ended, the family's attitude toward my parents shifted. Their actions were now out in the open, and the truth couldn't be ignored. It wasn't the way I wanted things to unfold, but it gave me closure. I knew I couldn't change the past, but I could move forward stronger and more determined than ever to prioritize my happiness and the life I wanted to build. "I didn't know, Kate. I swear I didn't know," Emma said, her voice shaky, her eyes wide with guilt. "It's not just about the money, Emma," I replied, unable to hide my frustration. "It's about trust. It's about respect. Our intention was never to hurt anyone," Dad said defensively, stepping in. Emma needed help, and we made a tough call. A tough call? I couldn't hide the disbelief in my voice. What about my wedding? What about my dreams? The air grew tense as relatives shifted uncomfortably, clearly aware of the tension between us. "Seems to me," an older cousin spoke up cautiously, "you thought only of one daughter. What about Kate?" Another relative chimed in, their tone sharper. "How do you justify choosing between your children like that?" The room erupted into a heated argument. Voices overlapped, family members taking sides. Some expressed sympathy toward me, while others tried to justify my parents' actions. It was a chaotic mix of emotions. "Enough." Tony's voice cut through the noise like a knife. The room fell silent, his commanding presence demanding attention. "This isn't just a family squabble over money," he said, his voice steady and firm. "It's about priorities. Today we've seen clearly where those priorities lie for some of us." The crowd grew quiet, the tension so thick it felt hard to breathe. My parents, usually so confident, now looked small under the weight of the disapproving stares directed at them. The reunion, which had started as a cheerful family gathering, had turned somber and uncomfortable. Slowly, relatives began to leave, offering me sympathetic glances and brief words of support. "I'm sorry, Kate," Emma muttered as she walked past me, unable to meet my eyes. "Don't be," I said softly. "It's not your fault, but it's clear now I need to step away from them." The drive home was quiet. My earlier resolve to expose the truth was now mixed with a deep sadness. It wasn't easy to face the reality of my parents' choices, but there was also a strange sense of relief. The truth was out, and with it came a chance to move forward, not just with my wedding plans, but with my life. In the days following the reunion, the fallout was immediate. Whispers of betrayal spread quickly through the community. My parents, who had always been respected, now faced harsh judgment from neighbors and friends. Walking through town, I felt the weight of the community's whispers. At the grocery store, I overheard snippets of conversations. "Did you hear about the Johnsons?" someone whispered. "They took money from their daughter's wedding fund for a kitchen remodel." "Yeah," another voice replied, "and at the expense of their other daughter. Poor Kate." The judgment from others was a strange kind of comfort, not joy, but validation that I wasn't overreacting. People saw what had happened for what it was, a betrayal. The looks my parents received in public were a stark contrast to the admiration they were used to. They couldn't ignore the consequences of their actions anymore, and it was clear they felt the weight of the community's disapproval. Despite everything, I felt a small sense of peace. The truth was no longer hidden, and I no longer had to carry the burden alone. My wedding would go on, smaller and simpler, but it would be a celebration of the people who truly cared for me. This painful experience taught me something important. I deserved to be surrounded by people who valued me and my happiness. It hurt to step away from my parents, but I realized that sometimes creating boundaries is the only way to protect yourself. With each passing day, I felt a little stronger. I had faced the betrayal, exposed the truth, and stood up for myself. It wasn't the wedding I had once dreamed of, but it was still my day, and it was still mine to cherish. In the end, I realized that this wasn't just about a kitchen or a wedding fund. It was about respect, love, and fairness, things I had a right to demand in my life. And from that point on, I vowed to never settle for less. Validation came slowly, but it arrived nonetheless. It felt good to know that the pain I had endured was seen, even if only by strangers. People now understood what I had gone through, and that recognition made me feel less alone. One chilly Thursday morning, as I browsed the local market, I spotted Emma. She approached me hesitantly, a wicker basket dangling awkwardly from her arm. Her nervousness was clear, but I wasn't sure I wanted to hear what she had to say. "Kate," she began softly. "Save it, Emma," I interrupted, my voice steady but firm. "I'm not in the mood." She paused, looking down for a moment before meeting my eyes again. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," she said, her tone sincere. "I really didn't know." I shook my head, my emotions carefully guarded. "Whether you knew or not doesn't change what happened," I said flatly. "They chose you, Emma. They always choose you, and somehow I'm always the one paying the price." Her expression crumbled, hurt filling her eyes. In the past, I might have softened at that look, but not this time. I couldn't let myself go back to that place. "I need space, Emma," I said, my voice unwavering. "Space to heal and rebuild my life without the chaos our parents bring." She nodded slowly, taking a small step back. "I understand," she said quietly, "but if you ever need me, just know I'm here." I watched her walk away, her shoulders slumped as though she were carrying the weight I had carried for so long. For the first time, though, I felt lighter, stronger. The months that followed brought whispers of my parents' misfortunes. Their once thriving boutique, a cornerstone of their social standing, was struggling. Regular customers who had once admired their charm now saw them in a different light. The Johnsons. "No, thank you," I overheard one woman say at a coffee shop. "You can't trust them, not after what they did to their own daughter." Their reputation crumbled, and with it, their financial stability. Rumors of bankruptcy surfaced, a sharp contrast to the life of comfort and privilege they had always enjoyed. While their world seemed to fall apart, mine was finally coming together. My wedding day arrived, not with the grandeur I had once imagined, but with something far better. A heartfelt celebration filled with love. The venue was small and intimate, decorated with simple elegance. Close friends and a few family members who had stood by me filled the space. Every moment felt like a stitch mending the fabric of my self-worth. "Congratulations, Kate," Uncle Tony toasted, raising his glass with a proud smile. "Here's to new beginnings and true happiness." The reception was filled with laughter and dancing. The soft glow of fairy lights and the scent of jasmine filled the air, creating a magical atmosphere. It wasn't perfect because it was extravagant. It was great because it was true. As my personal life got better, my career did too. I got promotions that opened up new chances for me. I spoke at marketing panels where I shared my experiences and helped others with their challenges. The bad mess that used to be my life was gone. Instead, there was a new feeling of control, options, and calm. When I think about it, I see that not having my parents' support was really hard. But it also let me grow into my best self. My life was not about what others wanted anymore. It was about living the way I wanted. The trip was tough, and some days sadness came in. With each step I took, I felt stronger and more sure of myself. My wedding, my job, and my happiness showed that I could create a life for myself without the influence of favoritism and hidden anger. After many years, I finally felt really calm. My story wasn't about saving money for a wedding or having a nice kitchen. I was focused on discovering my voice, taking back my dreams, and picking a life where I was the priority. I will always appreciate that gift. I created a life with people who support me and make me feel good, not those who bring me down. One calm evening, I sat on my balcony, enjoying the cool breeze moving the wind chimes. I thought about the path that led me here. The betrayal I went through was a tough lesson, but it taught me something very valuable: my value and strength. When I looked at the stars, I saw that tough challenges in life often make people stronger. My parents' choices might have started everything, but it was my own decisions that made the ending. At that calm time, I felt sure I had made the right choices for me. This is Kate's story about being let down, getting stronger, and discovering joy. What do you think about her choice to stay away from her family? Do you think it was a good choice, or could it have been done another way? Leave your ideas in the comments below.